welcome back to the Health One podcast. Today I have a very special friend, Zoë Dunlea.
Hi everyone.
Welcome to the studio. I feel so professional when I say that all the time now. I'm just like, hello, it's like on TV Cribs or something. That's the vibe I'm giving off. But welcome. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
No problem. So, welcome to my podcast. Why don't we get stuck into who you are, what brought you to Bali, what your job is, how you help people, etc.
Okay. The who you are question is the most dreaded question of all. Okay, so obviously my name is Zoe. I'm 33. I'm living in Bali. I am a life coach. More specifically, I am a mindset coach. I help people overcome their own negative thoughts, their own debilitating beliefs that they have about themselves, help things like routine, structure, all of those things. I think sometimes having someone in your corner, just knowing that someone has faith in you, I think can add so much to your life, having that accountability as well, because sometimes we can perform better for somebody else than we can perform for ourselves, which is mad when you think about it, how somebody else can have such a big impact on us. But
someone being your hype queen though is like
that's
amazing.
That's it.
And someone calling you out in your shit, but also teaching you that you can actually be nice to yourself as well.
Yes.
That's what I love about coaching, that people are like, oh wow, didn't realise that I could actually talk to myself that little bit better.
Yeah, that's it. Because I think people think that when they get into personal development, they have to like constantly take it up a gear, constantly keeping up, leveling. But the thing is, a lot of the time, it's actually teaching yourself to be a lot nicer to yourself. It's actually the exact opposite of what people think coaching is going to be.
Yeah.
Because you do need to be more compassionate to yourself, because there are so many things in life that we do beat ourselves up for, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
I know. I'm not the best at it, but we're evolving. I like what you said though about like we don't always have to be up leveling.
Yeah.
I like to think that we have like a series of like tests in life. I wouldn't even say tests because that makes it sound like we have to pass, but like projects, let's say, that we have like different phases of our life where we work on different things, and like different things can show up in your environment, in your life, in your relationships, that you get to be like, oh, okay, this is an opportunity for growth here. I can either take it, or I can decide right now that I don't have the capacity for that, or maybe seek professional help and help get someone to help me through that as well. So yeah, I love that.
And that's the thing, because it's actually, we were only speaking about it yesterday, like trying to build resilience. It's something that I actually, this might sound a little bit sad now, but I nearly love it. I get such an enjoyment from it, like going through it sounds a little bit strange, to be fair, but like, you know, when you have those periods of time where you're like, okay, this is fairly shit, or like this is a really tough period, but I'm always like, right, okay, it teaches you something. You're like, okay, I need to pull my socks up with this, or I need to pull back on this thing, some friendships or some habits or something like that. Maybe you need to rein those in, things like that, and those periods in life, they do teach us so much. Like, think about every single tough period in your life, and think about all the things you learned from it.
Oh my god, so much. I think there's so much to be said from struggle in your life. Like, I wouldn't be the person who I am today if I didn't deal with the amount of shit that I've dealt with in my life.
Same.
But I suppose if I had a lot more tools, or had someone supporting me, like a mindset coach or a life coach, I probably would have been able to handle them in a better way,
Yeah, that's the thing.
But I think at the end of the day, my journey is my journey, and I suppose maybe that's my own experience was what helps me be that person as a coach.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, that's it. Like, there are definitely things in my life, like when I know sometimes, again, like, going through things is going to teach you so much, but like, it's kind of like when you actually have that mindset of like going through these times is going to help you build your resilience, and it's going to teach you things. It gives meaning to your suffering. So like, when you have meaning from your suffering, that means like when you're going through your suffering, then again in the future, like, okay, I'm going to learn from this. So it makes your suffering a lot more bearable, because something's going to come from it.
Isn't it Carl Jung has a quote with that? He's a psychologist, isn't he?
I know him, but I don't know what that quote is. Like, maybe I might have heard it, but
do you know what? It's funny. I saw it once and I sent it to a client, and we spoke about that in detail and really helped her. And ever since, I've been trying to search the quote and I can't find it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So weird.
Sometimes it can nearly be a misquote. Maybe it wasn't him and someone like accredited him for it.
But the message is still the same.
Yeah. That's it. Doesn't really matter who said it.
Yeah. No.
At the end of the day, yeah.
I know, but I suppose what got you into being a life coach? I suppose you've had quite the journey with career changes.
Yes, for people listening, I've had people seem to laugh at me with all the different jobs I've had.
I'm still not over some of them.
Yeah, like beautician, barber, dental nurse, then manager of a dental practice, and now coach. So basically why I got into coaching is I loved my personal development, really enjoyed, like, we'll say, that whole thing of up-leveling. Possibly maybe dipped my toe into that too much, thinking that you have to consistently up-level and all that.
Oh, yeah. Hustle.
Exactly. But why then I got into the mindset coaching and life coaching was I basically wanted to help people how I wish I was helped when I needed it the most. Because I think there is still such a stigma, like, especially in Ireland. We have come so far, 100%, but there is, like, some of my clients take their calls in their car. Like, they don't want anybody knowing that they're going to a coach or anything like that. And it's like, I'm trying to break that stigma of, like, you can go to somebody and it's not like in, like, this really clinical setting of, like, you know, some person sitting in a chair here, I'm sitting in a chair here, and it's all very serious, and, you know, there's no kind of joy in the process, you know. It's all very it's all very serious, basically. I like to have some fun in the process, you know, like, we can learn to laugh at ourselves, you know, like, learn to actually enjoy the process. So, like, with my coaching, I just want to show people, like, that you can, it doesn't have to be this really clinical setting, and, you know, I can kind of change the whole process, you know. As I like to think of coaching is like an airplane, which might sound a little bit of a funny one. An airplane, right?
I'm listening.
Like, I basically and you would be like the airplane, right? If you want to go on holidays, you have to get on this plane. Okay, the flight might be really smooth, might be really easy, might be really short. Other people's journeys might be really long. There might be a lot of turbulence. There might be, it might not be the most enjoyable process, but in order for you to get to your destination, in order for you to get to your holiday, you have to go on that plane. That's how I want you to start thinking of coaching. And it is it's kind of like picking your pain. Are you willing to suffer through where you're at right now and not dealing with those things and burying your head in the sand, or are you willing to fight through them, talk about them, hash things out, see what you come up with, show compassion to yourself and show up for yourself? And that's kind of the whole process, really.
I love that. I think when people avoid emotions or uncomfortable situations or prolong supporting their health in some way, if they've got some issues with their digestion, their hormones, whatever it is, they prolong it because they think it's going to be, one, so difficult, which it may be. There may be issues, but they may underestimate, I suppose, their capabilities. They may underestimate how, as well, someone can support them as a coach. And I suppose at the end of the day, we need to understand, like that point you made with resilience, that we are able to do difficult things, but we need to go through those difficult things to be able to feel resilient. We need to be able to learn from our struggles and to see our strength. And I think there's so much to be said about that. Like, time and time again, we can let these external circumstances or overwhelming emotions kind of get on top of us, and we think that there's not really a way through. But if we learn to be resilient, we build up this kind of body of evidence that we've been able to manage these hard days time and time again. Why can't we do, like, this time's no different, you know? But I suppose, like you said, I love that analogy that sometimes the journey's going to be smooth, sometimes it's not. And that's what I always say to clients. So some clients could come to me and they're trying to regain their period. Some clients could regain it within the first month of working with me. Some clients might take them 9 months. It just depends on beliefs, lifestyles, stressors, their job, their relationships, their actual physiological health. There's so many elements that can contribute to that turbulence. I actually love that analogy.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah. Like, I suppose, think about, like, even like COVID. Think about, like, how our world, like, the world is literally turned upside down. Well, maybe not literally, but, you know, like, the world is turned upside down in so many ways. And, like, think about how we just took it in our stride. Obviously not, you know, completely, but we literally were like, okay, like, we were talking about the other day there about the 2 kilometer restrictions, and we could, like, but it's like, we were just like, okay, you know, and it's just like, we just got on with it. And it's like, that just shows us, like, we adapt to things so much in life, and we don't actually give ourselves credit for it, you know. And what it is like, how we get through it is, like, we just kind of put the blinkers on. And it's like, how many different situations have you been in where when you're in it, you don't actually realize how tough it is, but then when you're out of it, you're like, oh my god,
I know.
Like, that was mad, like, that was insane, I got through all that. And what that is when you're in that particular situation, you don't, like, it's like you have your blinkers on, you don't stop to think about the seriousness of it.
Yeah, you're in
and
survival mode, really.
That's the thing, and it's like, it's hope gets you through, and like, it's an amazing quality that humans have.
I know, we are so adaptable. We're amazing, and this is why I want everyone to be their own fucking hype queen and understand that we're all amazing, and we just revert back to self-criticism or comparison instead of understanding that we are doing amazing things on a daily basis. Like, even if you just made it through your day, even if you like had a shower, made your bed, all these basic things, you're smashing it. But I suppose I want to bring back what you said about we're so adaptable with COVID and we took it in our stride. Do you think we took it in our stride, or do you think we just suppressed it all?
I think possibly there was a little bit of suppression there, definitely. Yeah. And I think what that is like, okay, I'm not going to stop and think about this right now. Yeah. I'm going to deal with this later. Which we do need an element of that. Absolutely. 100% we do, because otherwise, like, if we actually were to stop and be like, okay, let's deal with it all right now, we wouldn't get through anything, you know.
Everything's on fire.
That's the thing, like, you'd be like, oh shit, like, I actually can't cope with this. So we do obviously need a bit of it. Yeah, I suppose then that does come down to the individual. Are they willing then to, when they get past situations, are they ready to and willing to actually dive into them, you know, doing like the work, as we call it, you know. And
I love how you said as well, so when you come and look at it afterwards, you can actually see, wow, that's amazing. I think that's what's really important about reflection.
Yes.
And learning lessons in life, because yes, you can see, I suppose what has happened and what I've seen with a lot of my clients is that they are coming to me post-COVID burnt out to fuck.
Yes.
Physiologically, psychologically, emotionally. They're so burnt out because maybe they don't have the tools on how to process that. They're not really facing it at all because, like you said, they've been in survival mode for so long. They don't really know how to shift out of that and kind of relax into it and be like, okay, I don't need to run from this scary tiger or bear anymore. I can actually come back into feeling human connection again and looking at more positive things and healing from what happened, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's so important. So I suppose what would your go-to tools be for helping someone with reflection?
I suppose it's like a big thing I would always say to people is like to start journaling, because like the power of journaling, journaling is an amazing tool, but the thing is with journaling is that it gets you to actually stop and think about what you're thinking about. Like generally what we do is we hop from thought to thought to thought. We don't actually stop to think about like, Jesus, what was I thinking yesterday? What was I thinking today? So I would definitely say bring in an element of journaling into your day. Doesn't have to be anything massive. Like, I'm not saying, you know, you have to journal for 45 minutes every day. If you sit there and you literally write, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? You will get to know yourself so much better. I would definitely begin to start talking to somebody. This doesn't even have to be somebody like a professional. Obviously a professional would be great, but it could be somebody just like a friend, you know. Actually be vulnerable with people. Tell people how you're feeling.
Someone you trust as well.
Exactly, you know, somebody that you know isn't going to like turn around and judge you for your feelings. And that's the thing about vulnerability, like being vulnerable, like, is basically going and opening up to somebody with that risk of them hurting you, because you are completely opening up to them. But vulnerability is an amazing thing to bring into your relationships. Think about like a time that somebody came to you and was like, Orla, look, I'm feeling like this, I need to tell you this, you know, I need to completely bear all with you. You would have felt so trusted. It would have brought you so much closer as a result. Yeah, you know, and you would have felt so much closer like your relationship then completely, it brings you closer together, and it brings your relationship so much stronger because you had that vulnerability. So go and speak to somebody, obviously like somebody like a coach, a therapist, someone like that. Obviously if you're not in a position to do so, I would say go and talk to somebody that you can be honest and vulnerable with, because 9 times out of 10 these people are feeling the exact same way as you, you know. So, and again, through like journaling and talking, you will realize that your thoughts are not as scary as you think they are. Your thoughts cannot hurt you. It's your reaction to your thoughts can hurt you the most. So let's just say you are feeling a certain way, maybe after COVID or after a relationship or while in a relationship, and your reaction to these difficult emotions is to run away from them. Okay, think about all the other things that could suffer as a result of you running away from your emotions instead of actually facing them to begin with. So let's just say you run away from them. That means you could become like completely numb, completely distant. Like your relationships would suffer then. We'll say relationships with family might suffer. Like we've all been sitting next to somebody who's there, but they're not there, and that's shit. That's really not nice. And think about if you're running away from your emotions and you don't want to face up to them, you probably are gone a little bit cold, a little bit distant, and think about all the knock-on effects to that. So you might think that you're protecting yourself and your relationships in your life by not opening up and not being honest with your emotions and actually facing them and actually dealing with them with emotions, but the consequences of running away from your emotions or the consequences of your reactions to your emotions will always be far worse than your emotions in the first place.
And I think people always try to predict as well
what's
going to happen. Like
fortune tellers, all of us.
Fortune tellers. Psychic. Like that's so Raven in my head now. So when she does the vision and she's like, but
I think maybe I'm showing our age difference there. That's where Raven was like slightly younger
for
me. Yeah.
Oh my god, yeah. Zoe's actually much older than me. You wouldn't think it because she's such a little tiny thing. But no, I think people, that was something that I used to deal with quite a lot, was obsessive thoughts and catastrophizing and trying to predict what other people were thinking. And I suppose that comes back from like how I had learned to survive today. It was like sensing other people's emotions or predicting what they're going to say to protect myself. But the thing is, you can't predict what other people think, and it's none of your fucking business what they think as well. You have to be able to just get so comfortable and certain with your own thoughts and your own emotions and your own reactions, taking that responsibility for yourself. And like you said, so getting to know yourself, getting to know what's in your mind. Is it actually your own thoughts, your own feelings, or is it that you're trying to predict what other people are thinking or saying or doing? And like you said, that's what's causing pain. You're like, the situation is what the situation is. You can think about what your emotion is, what your needs are in that situation. You can then bring that to that person and you can communicate effectively and resolve the issue, or not. Maybe it doesn't get resolved and maybe you go separate ways, or maybe the job isn't for you or whatever. But that's how you move through situations, rather than staying stuck in this kind of mindset where we think that we're helpless or people are against us and all these stories we tell ourselves. And I think that's probably a massive thing that you'll see in your coaching, really, is it? Definitely.
And as well, even what you were saying there about like what people think of us and stuff, something that I like to again, this is probably going to sound a little bit strange. I have a lot of strange analogies just to get a point across. Just because I'm like,
we love an analogy.
So bear with me when I start off with a strange analogy. So basically, when we seem to think that like people are judging us, people are judging our behaviors, commenting on it, talking about us, all of these things. I had a situation there. This was a good couple of years ago. I would have felt a lot of anxiety at the time. And I remember I saw this guy that I knew from the gym, and he just looked at me. We were in traffic and he was in the car next to me, and he just looked at me, looked away, and I just felt this huge sense of anxiety come over me. And I was just like, oh my God, like what have I done? Oh my God, they must be all thinking I'd done something in the gym, and they're all probably all talking about me, and my mind now ran away with itself. Like I remember like being shaking and everything, like properly shook, and just heart racing and everything, thinking, Jesus, they must be all talking about me. A few weeks later, I actually found out his dad was actually terminally ill.
Oh wow.
And his dad actually passed away a couple of weeks afterwards. But here was me thinking
it was all about you.
It was all about me. And it's like, what gives me the right to think that the whole world revolves around me?
I know.
And I think that's what we do. Like, we literally are like, oh, well, like that person didn't react exactly how I wanted them to react to me, so they must, like, the world revolves around me. They couldn't, of course they can't have anything going on in their lives. Everything revolves around me. Like, I'm the most important person in the world. And I think when you kind of start to look at it in that way, you're like, oh my God, it's kind of like poking a little bit of fun at yourself in a way, like, come off it now, you're not the center of, you're not the center of the world, like, or the center of the universe, and that was a big lesson for me, which I kind of accidentally was like, oh, wow, that's actually what was going on there, you know?
I think when you have a stronger sense of self as well, you don't take things so personally. I think a lot of us get so lost in that external validation or that acceptance of other people that because of someone's reaction, we use that to determine how we feel about ourselves. So instead of actually being like, oh, okay, maybe that person might need my support and I might need to check in on them and see are they okay. But because you're taking everything so personally and you're seeking externally all the time, you're never going to feel that sense of certainty with yourself. Like, as well, I suppose we can look at tools that help regulate yourself in that moment as well. Like, they're so important. Like, when you are on a journey of improving your thoughts, improving your mindset, you need to learn the tools to help yourself move through that. With your nervous system, with your mental health, just anything that helps keep you grounded and helps keep you just moving through anxiety rather than staying in that state. Because you're not going to be able to access the rational part of your brain that helps you understand that situation in an objective way. You're actually going to be in survival mode, basically. You're emotional, you're reactive. So while we're talking about trying to understand reactions and think about how you can pause in between the thought and the reaction, or sorry, the response, instead of reacting, if you can take that pause and think about things rationally, and maybe that pause is really long. Maybe you take a step away and you journal, and maybe you talk to a mindset coach, maybe you talk to a friend, a therapist, whatever it is. But for you to be able to actually cultivate that skill of taking that pause on a regular basis, you need to bring the body on board as well. You love your yoga and your routine and everything like that. Do you want to talk to people through that?
So I am a routine, like, obsessed person. Like,
Too much for me.
Obviously myself and Orla will be talking about our routines and our structure and all that. I am definitely a person who just thrives on a time block routine, like do the same thing, same time every day. That's why I actually, when people say to me, oh, would you travel around, you know, like Southeast Asia when you're down this side of the world, I'm like, I can't. Like, that actually sends me, like, oh my god, into like panic mode of like, oh my god, I won't be in a routine. Which, look, just works for me. Obviously not everybody's the same, but that's just something that works for me. I love my early mornings. I love my yoga. Like, I don't start work here because of the time difference. I don't start work here until like 1 or 2 o'clock, like actual coaching calls every day. But I get up at 5:30, which to some people is probably absolute insanity.
Oh, me.
No, like, thanks. People are like, what? Like, you don't start work and you get up at that time? Like, they're like, what? But for me, that's just what works really well for me. That's not to say that, like, you know, 5 a.m. club is for everyone. It's not, you know.
There's so much pressure with that. I think that, like, we all think we need to be doing to be successful, and that's another conversation for another day of what's your version of successful. But to be like everyone else, to be achieving, to be getting the most out of life, you have to be up early, you have to be hustling, you have to be doing these things, and you have to just go with what fits you. Like, I have done that structured, so rigid routine to get shit done, and I've had to do it at a point in my life where I've had 2 jobs, or I've had college and work and socializing and whatever. But for me, I suppose what I've learned with even my masculine and feminine energies is that that's too rigid for me. I definitely do need an element of structure, and if it's too flowy, absolutely not. Like, I hate going on holidays with people or making plans for the weekend and people are like, yeah, we might do this and that and the other, and I'm like, no, can we like decide if it's at least like the morning or the afternoon, because I need to plan my day around that. Like, I can't deal with people that are way too go with the flow, because I'm like, no, because I need to know if I can gym, I need to know if I can wash my hair, and you know, all that kind of stuff. But I think I'd be more balanced, whereas some people love the flow. They love just spontaneous, day by day, taking it as it comes. Whereas you're very in your masculine in terms of structure, rigid, and that helps you thrive. And so I think that's so important with routine. Well, starting with a routine in the first place. Some people don't even have that. We'll talk about that in a sec. But doing what works for you, and that might mean trying different things. I think people are so afraid to change up their routines and change up their structures or their approaches to life, or their way that they, I don't know, upskill or study or whatever, because they're so stuck in what they've done and think that that's the only way that they can do. I suppose they fear the unknown. That's a big thing as well. But I suppose if you have that support, that could be someone that can point out your blind spots and someone that can point out a way you can do things much more simplistic.
Yeah.
Like your coaching aligns with my coaching in terms of we work with the neurological system in terms of breaking things down very, very simply, which prevents the nervous system from getting overwhelmed. So that knocks out procrastination, that helps you feel a little bit more comfortable, and that's what helps people move through. So I suppose when we come to change or trying something new, what people look at is this scary distance. So they're at point A, and where they want to get to is at point Z, instead of just focusing on A to B, those baby steps that they can do things one at a time. And that's so much easier to do. That's so much less expectation, so much less pressure on yourself. And that can help with positive self-talk. That can help with you feeling like you're achieving at life, instead of comparing yourself and being like, okay, looking at where I want to get to compare myself to someone online, say, she's like, she's so far in this, and that's where I want to be. I'll never be able to do that. Bringing in these limiting beliefs and everything in between. But just understanding that she didn't start where she is now. She actually had to start from where you are and taking it slow day by day. It didn't happen overnight. So many topics to dig into from that, but I suppose if we bring it back to change, and I suppose like what I mentioned, you've changed so much throughout the years. Like even, oh my god, so funny, we were looking at Zoe's pictures. We were looking at mine too, to be fair.
To be fair, yours are very, very different as well. Yeah.
So we've had many different hair colours. What colour hairs have you had? Hair.
So I'm a natural brunette.
Okay.
So brunette. Then I used to have these mad red and blonde streaks in my and when I say streaks, they were like this skinny little tiny streaks,
great.
like woeful. Oh my god, won't. That was like, and then I went to blonde. For any hairdressers listening, myself and my friend bleached my hair with 40 vol. Straight through down to the roots.
Get that? Did you just walk in and buy that?
In the salon shop. Roots down to the ends. How I have any hair left to this day is completely beyond me. But so it was then blonde. Then it was blonde then for a good couple of years, and then decided, right, I'm changing it up. So I went pink for a while. Went pink for a while, like a lovely candy floss pink. I actually loved it. When I look back, I'm like, oh, I love that hair.
I liked my pink as well.
It's the upkeep. Oh my god. I had the candy floss pink, and then I went for a purple. The purple then honestly scared me for life in terms of like dyeing your hair.
Was it deep purple or?
It started off as a lilac, and then it went deeper and deeper and deeper, and it was, oh my god, my poor hairdresser Amy, God love her. I was in the hairdressers with her for maybe like 7 hours getting out the purple, and I went green as a result, because that's what happens. And at the time I was still in my day job in the dental surgery, and I went back in with green hair, and all the patients were like, oh, you got rid of your purple hair. Like, I was like, it's not meant to be green. They were like, okay, well, thank God for that, Jesus.
So funny, isn't it, how people are like, oh, it's lovely. It's like, just tell me it's rotten, I know it is. Like, be honest.
And these, like, they all knew that my crazy hairstyles and hair colours and like coming in with like different piercings and tattoos. I'd say they were just like, oh my God. These because these were like kind of like older people, like all like people like that were retired that would be in like every week like getting stuff done with their dentures and stuff, and just being like, oh, she's gone green now, wow. I was like, no, that's a step too far. But so that has been my colour of my hair history.
We've evolved. I've been pink, so originally brown hair, so I went through the journeys of like, dark reddy vibes, Rihanna red too, then kind of like the purple hue, then like black, like literally black. The black ones are the funniest. So
I can't even imagine you black. What did I see?
You saw the picture. I had a lot more weight on me then as well, so it doesn't even look like the same person. Like all of our Bally friends are like in shock when I showed them that picture.
When it was Daniel showed me that photo one day, and he was like, who's this? And I was like, I've no idea.
It's mad. No, it really is. But yeah, I've been all the different colours, but I suppose I think that's a great thing that we've been trying to experiment and try to find our authentic self. I think throughout life it's important to kind of go with what you're wanting to do and figure out. So if you're thinking of change and you're feeling stuck, or you're feeling like you're lacking fulfillment, or you just want something more, you feel that in you, your intuitive knowing that something is out there for you, or the way your life is not aligning with you. Unlearning, I suppose, who society has taught you to be, to get you to that level of change, or to get you to that level of feeling aligned, is so important. I think a lot of us go through life feeling that we need to figure out who we are, but I think it's in the unlearning and the kind of digging in deep.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like a big thing is like who your friends are, I think, you know, and society's pressures and all of this, like I suppose who you identify as can either propel you forward, or it can be like your chain that holds you back.
Yeah.
Like if you would love to be a person who gets up early and goes training before work, but you're like, just not a morning person. No, I'm just not a morning person, and you keep on insisting I'm not a morning person.
Yeah.
Like you're never going to be a morning person.
Did you try though?
Yeah, do you know? And it's like, but if you always believe it about yourself, like if you're always like, but I'm not a morning person, it's like then you're never going to be that, you know. So it does always start with yourself and what you tell yourself you are, because basically, whatever you tell yourself you are, you will become.
Absolutely.
Even in my own personal experience, I had a teacher when I was maybe,
oh my God,
yeah, like when I was a baby about 7, who passed a comment saying that I wasn't like the other girls in my class and I would probably be just a housewife. And I was like, oh, okay, because I completely trusted what she said, because, you know, she was an adult, she was a teacher, she knew better than me. We were taught to trust these people. And I took this comment and I ran with it. I was like, okay, I must be stupid, like, you know, and look, that's fine. That's completely fine. You know, I'll just, like, a big thing for me growing up was sports. So I was like, I'm obviously just more sports thing, you know, focus, like, so that's fine, you know. And I was just like, yeah, and I was very accepting of it. I was very matter of fact about it. It then became my reality because I completely believed it about myself. I stopped showing up for myself, which resulted in me getting 90 points in my leaving cert, which is probably the lowest anybody listening to this has probably ever heard of. Didn't even make the treble digits.
If you're English or from anywhere all over the world, 600 points is the max. 625 now, actually, I think it is.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, with maths it's changed. My year was the first year for that. But the point system is ridiculous. We won't go into that argument, but anyway, it's just the school system's way of getting into college or university, basically. So yours would have been on the much lower end of the scale, I suppose, because of that.
Much lower,
yeah.
we'll say.
Very low.
Yeah. And then I was like, okay, well, there you go, you know, like, and then that further fed that identity belief then, you know. So I was like, see, like, I 90 points in my leaving cert, you know, but it was because I didn't show up for myself. I'm far more capable than getting 90 points in my leaving cert, like, I really am. But because I had that identity, I was like, okay, well, if I don't try, I can't embarrass myself, you know. So that's it. So I was like, a protection thing. So that is the real thing of, like, a real example of your identity completely controlling your behaviors and controlling your reality. And now, like, honestly, whatever I actually put my mind to do, I know I can do.
I can fucking do it.
Yeah, and like, I know that sounds so, like, cliche and cringe, but, like,
it's not.
Like, it's true. Like, there have been times, you probably relate now, where you're like, it's something in business, like, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? You're like, how the fuck am I actually going to get through this? And then 10 minutes later, you're like, yeah, done. You know, and you're just like, if you just apply yourself, you actually can. And a lot of the time, like, when people say I can't, it's just, they're just not. No, to a certain point, a lot of the time it can be that people just aren't applying themselves enough. They might not get this straight away.
I think as well what's difficult is if you've had messages continuously over the course of your life that you're not good enough, that you're not capable, that you're not going to amount to anything, you're going to believe that, like you said, that becomes your identity. So it can feel very difficult for you to move through that if someone has constantly told you that, maybe multiple sources throughout your life. So I've had multiple different situations in my life where I've been told that, like, or the message I've received from those people is that I don't matter, that I'm not heard, no one wants to listen to me, and that I'm not worthy or I'm not good enough. So for years I took that on myself, like what you did as well, and it comes back to the stories as well, comes back to the thoughts. When we identify with our thoughts, when we don't realise that we don't have to think with our thoughts, sorry, not think with our thoughts, we don't have to identify with our thoughts or latch onto our thoughts, we can move through that. It's these narratives that we get stuck in, and if we can actually, so to apply ourselves, let's say, we may need to look at our thoughts, we may need to look at the daily stories and really listen to different things. And I think that's how books, podcasts, self-development, coaching, all that stuff really helps, because it changes your inner world. It changes the way you think. It changes the way you feel about yourself. Like you said, your new belief is, I can do fucking anything.
Yeah.
I can do fucking anything. And even if some days you don't feel into that, or you don't really remember that, at the end of the day, it comes down to what's inside. Like subconsciously, you have evolved to believe that. So even if some days you're like, no, I can't do this, I don't want to do it, and maybe you procrastinate for a while, or maybe you moan about it, but you eventually get it done. And that's why it's so important to work on your mindset, to work on your emotions, to work on your mental health, your belief systems, everything, because it's who you are at the core that will
shape your reality always.
Exactly. It's your internal world that will change your external world. And I kind of love what you said there. There's a quote that relates to that it's whoever you think you will become is your punishment. Maybe I've mingled that a little bit, but it's basically it's a stoic quote that basically, if you think you're going to be a nurse or a teacher or whatever, that is your punishment. I think it was Seneca, but essentially that you, like your beliefs, what you think is going to happen for you, if what you absorb from your environment, what people tell you, if you don't decide that for yourself, that's what your life is going to become. So until you feel empowered, until you feel brave enough, until you say, fuck this, I'm going to change, that's you're going to stay with that environment, you're going to stay with that reality as well. I suppose it took me until I was like felt rock bottom, that I had like nothing else to fucking lose, that I was like, do you know what, fuck them, fuck this job, fuck this, I'm going to go do something different, even if it means going solo. And I touched on in a previous podcast, I probably went a little bit hyper independent for a while there, that I was like, I don't need people, whatever. But it is empowering to know that you can change who you want to be at any given moment in time. If something is not aligning for you, if you're feeling that some sort of relationship is weighing you down, or a job isn't meant for you, or whatever, change it. Just fucking change it. Go for it. Your life is too short.
That's it.
You are not going to be given a second chance at this. So why are you listening to other people's beliefs, other people's opinions, other people's judgments? And usually some people's judgments are just their own judgments and their own shame that they have about themselves as well. Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest things is that stop waiting for somebody else to come along and do the work for you. You know, like life is tough. Life is not a fairy tale. There's no knight in shining armor that's going to come along and go, right, so Orla, here now, you know, I'm going to get rid of all your negative beliefs. I'm going to give you all good ones, you know, and you're going to, that's like, be amazing if that's how life works, but it isn't, you know.
No.
We, I hate the term be realistic, but we have to be quite realistic as well, in terms of that we do have to take responsibility for ourselves, you know, and waiting for the perfect time and burying your head in the sand until that perfect time comes along. That is the exact way that every single negative emotion you feel is going to be amplified. Think about any time that you've ever been like, no, I want to avoid that. And then you eventually go, hey, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And you're going to, like, we'll say, rip the band-aid off, that type of thing. The second you've done, you're like, oh my God, why didn't I do that sooner? And that's like your emotions, you know? If you're like, I like to think of like negative or difficult emotions like a ball. And if you're suppressing your negative emotions, you're trying to push that ball underneath the water, okay? The harder and the quicker that you push that ball down, they're going to come back, the ball is going to come back up twice as fast and slap you in the face, bite you in the ass, whatever. Whereas if you can actually let your emotions be there, see them, hear them, and work with them as opposed to trying to suppress them, the ball will just bob along the water completely fine, you know? And as I said before, like, it's not your emotions that can hurt you. Like, anger might not feel very nice, might not feel very comfortable, but it's your reaction to the anger is what's going to hurt you the most. So let's just say now, myself and Orla have an argument, I get really angry about it, I then decide, right, I'm going to get up and I'm going to smack this microphone on the ground or something silly because I'm so angry, right? Like, obviously the consequences of that are going to be so much worse because I've like possibly broke a microphone. And as well, you know, and like obviously then having to deal with, like, you know, the fact that Orla's like, Zoe, like, what the hell are you doing, you know, as opposed to me being like, okay, I'm angry over something that Orla said.
I'm working through it together, yeah. And
yeah,
I think that's where people learning the tools, learning how to process anger, learning that it's okay to have anger, and honoring your emotions as well. I think that was a big thing for me, is that because I was so emotional throughout the years, that maybe led me to being taken advantage of or gaslit or whatever, and then I learned to just suppress them and to not have emotions. I think I didn't cry for like 2 years. I used to regularly cry, like watching sad movies, like I was so in touch with my emotions, and then I got to a point where I was like, wow, I haven't cried in 2 years. I was like, oh my god.
And that's the thing, because so many people say, even then you say, oh my god, I was so emotional. Like people say, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I'm so emotional, and you're like, that's that's amazing. You should be so proud of yourself that you are emotional. Or people apologize for crying, like clients on calls or something, they might apologize for crying, and I'm like, do not ever apologize for crying. Like
let it out, sis.
Let it out, because like you should be proud of yourself that you're being vulnerable. You are hearing your emotions, because the more that you can hear your emotions as well, like the better your relationship is with yourself. Like if you're sitting there suppressing your emotions, not listening to your body, doing all of these things all of the time, and then you're wondering then, will you have zero intuition and your relationship with yourself is extremely poor? Of course it is. If you had a friend that kept on coming to you and saying, look, or I'm feeling this way, or I'm thinking this, and you were like, oh, go away, shut up, like, because that's what we tell ourselves. Of course I'm going to stop coming to you.
I know,
and that's exactly what our intuition is going to do. So it's like you have to hear yourself in order to rebuild your relationship with yourself, to actually have the best chance going forward. Because if you're completely suppressing your emotions, not hearing yourself out, not listening to your body, all of these things, your relationship with yourself is going to completely deteriorate, and life is not going to be good.
Yeah, and that's where people pick up kind of addictive behaviors or coping mechanisms that aren't necessarily adaptive, they're maladaptive. So this is where people will struggle with the relationship with food and emotional eating or binge eating, maybe struggle with smoking, drinking, substance abuse. Maybe it's as simple as scrolling on TikTok. Like it could be very simple things, procrastinating. There's so many different addictive behaviors that we have that is your body's way of managing the emotion as well. So even though you might just think, oh right, well I'm not really in the mood to handle it, it's going to come out some way. There's a dysregulation in your body, and your body learns how to cope with it, and whether that coping mechanism serves you or not is another story. So I think that this is just to understand that if you invest in yourself, and that may be just time, that may be just energy, that may be just reading up on things or learning things, it doesn't always need to be money, but invest in yourself with money too. Like I remember it took me so long to be like, oh my god, I'm actually going to buy a course for me to learn something about relationships or whatever, but I'm like, why would I ever invest money in learning about relationships when like they're the one that's in the problem or whatever, or there's no value. I can't believe that course for nutrition or I don't know, mindset is like €200. That's not worth that. But it's like, what are you worth to yourself, And like I said, it doesn't have to be money. Like giving your time, putting yourself actually on your priority list, giving yourself space in the day to manage this stuff. You're not going to be able to cope with this stuff if your day is jam-packed from back to back. And this is what's really important as well, is that your body needs to come out of that stress response as well, for your mindset to be able to, for you to be able to do this work as well. And your routine, you dedicate that time to yourself in the morning, so that you're like, okay, what am I thinking? How am I feeling? Do I need to release anything? And maybe that will set the tone then for your day. Maybe you'll be like, okay, maybe I won't train so quickly this morning, or maybe I'll change my time to train tomorrow instead, or maybe I'll rearrange, whatever, to give myself that space and that time. Now obviously we have a lot more flexibility with our routine, and that's obviously something that we're really grateful for, but you could reschedule a social occasion, you could change an appointment. There's lots of different things that you can do, and it's not just about what you're removing, it's about what you're including. So I always say that to clients, instead of just thinking, oh god, I'm removing all these things from my life, I'm feeling deprived. It's like, okay, well, what are you giving yourself? What value are you adding to your life in that sense as well? But yeah.
It's that's the thing, as you're saying, like it's not kind of give and take and stuff like that. Like if you're, like, let's just say the weekends, like obviously the weekend is a big thing where a lot of self-sabotage goes on, whether it be like physical in terms of drinking, taking recreational drugs, like, doing things like staying in bed all day then possibly on the Sunday. Like these are real self-sabotage behaviors, but people aren't, like, as you were saying about like courses and stuff like that, not willing to put money and time and things like that into it. Obviously it doesn't always come back to money. You can do a lot of things, like there are everything at our fingertips now. We're so privileged.
Obviously we've spoken quite a lot about like logic and a lot about conditioning and beliefs and accessing your mind, but I suppose that has been something that's served me, but I had to learn to reconnect with my intuition. You are spiritual as well, and like I said, there's so much value to be gotten from this information, but I do think we need to get more trusting with our intuition. We need to get more trusting with us making decisions, and sometimes the decisions that we make don't really align logically. Sometimes they don't make sense. Sometimes they might not seem like the most, like, we give you examples of what to do in a situation in this podcast because of what we've seen works based on research or based on clients anecdotally or whatever. But for you in that moment in time, you might have a nudge in your intuition to kind of go for something else. Would you encourage your clients to get involved with their intuition and their spiritual side? Do you think that's really important for their mindset as well?
Like, I wouldn't say it's like absolutely vital to be like, you know, this really spiritual person, but like not being afraid, like just like dipping your toe into it, you know, like you don't have to become, you know, this like really extremely spiritual, you know, like witch, you know, that way, like start dipping your toe in. And I think that's what I done. I remember I began just doing yoga, and I just, the girl I was doing yoga with, she just say some things and I was like, wow, oh my god, that's amazing. And then I started off, I actually done like an 8-week mindfulness course that opened my eyes even more again, and then I just kind of started really like dipping my toe in further and further again. I was doing things like a lot of meditation, crystals, cards, all of these things. You don't have to do all of those things, you know. You might click with one thing, you might not click with another. We were speaking recently about like star signs and stuff like that. They don't speak to me at all. They're just not something I've ever really vibed with, and that's completely fine. And people are nearly shocked, I think, sometimes when they realise that I'm not, because I'm like, oh yeah, but I love like cards and all that type of thing. I wouldn't say it's hugely vital. The one thing that I would say is massively important is meditation. Like hugely important. Meditation, cliche now, but meditation changed my life.
Me too.
Like literally like if you go, like if something that I used to struggle with a lot was anger and reactions. So like if somebody like cut me off now in traffic or like took my parking space, I'd be like, oh my god, are you fucking serious? I remember there was one day I forgot to iron my scrubs for work on the Monday morning. Oh god, like I was like slamming the ironing board. Like I'm actually embarrassed of that version of me. And that was one of my moments where I was like, Zoe, you need to wake up, girl, you know, like you need to sort yourself out here. And like like that was one of my moments where I was like, come on. And that's when I really started digging into meditation, which got me to be able to go from witness and react to witness, pause and respond. And that is something that will change your life. That pause, it might be a couple of seconds long, but that pause can be the difference between a 3-day fight with your partner. That pause can be the difference between you doing something absolutely drastic out of anger and living with that regret for the rest of your life. That pause can add so much to your life. It is absolutely incredible. And the thing is, you even touched on something there just about like communication with people and stuff, and you were saying, fuck that, like they're in the wrong, why should I have to work on my communication? But the thing is, if you go in with that mindset of like, but they're in the wrong, you're in the wrong too, because if you're not willing to even hear someone out, even if in your mind you think they're wrong, they're looking at life through their own lenses, you're looking at life through your own lenses. So you need to speak in order to actually hear each other out on that deeper level. And having those conversations, what can help you with those conversations is meditation, because you can go in with such a calmer perspective in life, you know, and so that you're not in that really reactive state, you're in like a state of response. So yeah, I would say it's not hugely vital, but I do think it can add like immense value to your life. It is absolutely incredible.
I think that's what's really helped me with spirituality and mindfulness and working with the body and opening my mind up to, I'm going to sound like a proper hippie now, but like the world and how we're all not against each other, and how at the end of the day we all have the same needs of wanting love, wanting to be heard, wanting to be seen. So if we can come around to that perspective, we don't have to see each other as against one another. We can actually be like, okay, what does my partner want right now, or what is my friend really struggling with right now? Do I need to go in guns blazing and attack, or do I need to understand from her perspective or his perspective or whatever? And that's what can help, I think, connect us all a little bit more.
Yes,
I do think, and I think that's so important with mental health as well. We can feel a lack of connection, we can feel lost in ourselves, and obviously you need to feel connected with yourself, but we need to feel connected to the humans that are around us as well. And maybe you can't see that because you have such a pessimistic view of the world, because of the content you consume, because of your upbringing and religious beliefs in your family or whatever, but it's up to you to decide what new way you want to see the world. And I think that's such a lovely or special way to think, is like the world isn't as awful as we think it is. Like, yes, there's horrible shit happening in the world, like COVID, it was all fucking doom and gloom, but at the end of the day we can all come back to this place that we are all just wanting to be connected, we're all just wanting to support one another. It's our conditioning that's made us think that we don't. And I think when you come back to that state with meditation, with your nervous system, whether it is when you're journaling, whether it is when you're pulling cards, whether that is whatever like tool, let's say like crystals, meditation, well, I'd argue that meditation should be essential, not a tool, but say your crystals, your star signs, your whatever spiritual thing or healing modality that you align with, just use what works for you. Like use what tool helps you become a better person.
You don't have to take everything. You don't have to take everything, you know, like just because you get into crystals doesn't mean you have to get into cards and this and that, and, do you know what I mean? Like if something speaks to you, just go with it, you know. Like as I like to say, like, look, if you haven't been spiritual all your life, if you haven't been doing the reflection, if you haven't been doing the work, it's not too late to start. Like your future self deserves all the respect in the world that you can possibly give it. Like if you come along and you open up a sliced pan, right?
Here we go.
Another analogy.
I love how they're so Irish as well.
If you come along and you open up a sliced pan, right? You take out your 2 slices of bread, which I would love right now. Bally bread does not hit, like it's just anyway, with some dairy gold now would be nice. But taking out your 2 slices of bread, you put them into the toaster, okay? Are you going to leave the sliced pan open? Hopefully not, okay? But by closing it, you are basically showing respect to your future self, because you're like, I'm thinking of my future self. If you leave that sliced pan open, you're going to go back to that bread the next day and be like, this is stale, you know, and like I only have myself to blame. That's what life is like, you know. Like if you're doing something like that's like a self-sabotaging behavior, like we'll say going out every single weekend, drinking, spending time around people that are not serving you, who don't have your best interest at heart, which so many of us have been through. We can all relate to that. Like that, your future self is going to be like, come on, you know, like that future self is going to be like throughout the week feeling like absolute shit because of your actions at the weekend, your behaviours at the weekend, you know. And we seem to think that our future self is a different person, but like that's us. Like our future self is us.
I like how you relate your future self to like literally could be the person you are next week, not necessarily someone that's so far in the distance.
That's the thing.
Because I think that's what sometimes happens. We're like, oh, that's a later problem, I'll deal with that eventually. But it's like, okay, well, why can't you make your life better next week? Like,
or even just like later on. Yeah. Like me now, let's just say now if I needed to get milk on the way home, right? And I'm and if I'm like, oh, I'll just leave that now till later. Like my 7 o'clock at night self is like, oh my god, I love a cup of tea, you know, like, and now I'm after screwing myself over because I didn't get the milk. Think of your future self, again, this is very Irish, like think of your future self when you're going home.
Cup of tea.
Think of your future self and pick up the milk, you know. Oat milk as well, by the way.
Oat milk,
the elite.
I'm a normal milk gal. I remember I cut out like dairy and stuff like that for years, thinking like it was gonna fix me and whatever the fuck, but I actually enjoy my normal milk now. Zoe, like anywhere we go, she's like, they don't have no oat milk. What?
Oat milk is the elite. Oat milk is the goat. Like it's literally just it's just, now in saying that, I don't mind like actual dairy milk, like it's just like, you know,
it's just your fave.
It's a good one.
Okay, we've got a question for you. How to overcome, so this kind of applies to what you've just answered, I suppose, actually. How to overcome Sunday dread of work week ahead, especially when you've got the Sunday scaries.
Okay, so I would go like in a couple of different directions with this. Okay, instead of looking straight at like your external things, like maybe like, oh my God, I'm so allergic to going into work tomorrow, like my job is the problem. Instead of like looking at those things, I would say, look at yourself, reflect, and like maybe call yourself out on your own shit. So like, what have you spent the weekend doing? Have you done things that are going to add value to your life, or have you done things that are going to take away value from your life? Not that drinking can be done in a very positive way, you know. It can be like, it's, drinking is not like, you know, I'm not like anti-drinking, that it's this negative thing. Drinking can be done in a great way, you know, spending time with loved ones, having the crack, you know, like definitely
it's your relationship with it that matters.
Exactly. And it comes back to like why you're drinking. So like, let's just say now, if you spent the weekend again around people who don't have your best interest at heart, or if you have spent the whole weekend on social media, scrolling, not communicating with people that you love, not getting outside, things like that. If you're doing all things that aren't going to add value to your life, of course you're going to have the Sunday scaries because of your behaviour. And if you know then you're going into a full week of something that doesn't light you on fire, you're possibly, what you're feeling isn't like the Sunday scaries. It's like, I haven't made the most of my weekend. Regret is setting in. And you know your future self is going to be like, I just pissed away a whole weekend, you know.
Why am I like this?
Yeah, you know, so I would look at it from that perspective. I would then look at it in terms of like what you're, like, let's just say you're going into work, you work on Monday to Friday, you're going into work on your Monday morning and you're like, I hate this job. Like, I am not fulfilled by this job. Sometimes, yes, the answer can be to leave the job. Not always. 9 times out of 10, like when people come to me for coaching, they think that I'm automatically going to say to them, let's leave your job, you know, come on, let's go, let's move. But that's not always the answer. We do need to look at our attitude to work, what we're telling ourselves about work, how we're treating it, how we're treating the experience, our fulfillment around it. There are so many different things that you can do to change your perspective of work. It's not, sometimes it is the answer, you know, maybe that's not fulfilling you, we need to move away from it.
It was for me.
Yeah, and the same for myself, but that's not always the case, okay? Look internally first, I would 100% say, instead of trying to change things in your external world. Call yourself out in your own shit, check your own behaviours, check your own habits, see what you've spent your time doing over the weekend, see what your attitude is to your week coming up, and then take it from there. Do the internal work first, and then, if possible, if you still don't have answers, maybe start looking at external things. What I would say, taking out your journal, why do I have the Sunday scaries? Literally just ask yourself the question, why do I have the Sunday scaries?
What do I fear the most?
Yeah.
What emotion is triggering this anxiety?
Exactly.
Is it, like you said, is it just the physiological and I'm overthinking because my body is just hanging?
Exactly.
Have I been feeding myself good food? Have I missed out on sleep? There's so many different elements that could be feeding into that. So like you said, that there is those two ways to look at it, and I think that that's what's really important, is that it's kind of like this binge restrict mindset with drink. It's very similar to food, where people have like weekend, weekday, and if your weekday feels so mundane, feels so fucking miserable, of course you're going to want to absolutely release on the weekend. You're going to want to go hard or go home. You're going to want to like numb your brain. You're going to want to dance your ass off, which there's nothing wrong with, but having this good versus bad mentality, or struggle, hustle during the week, and feeling then finally I can release and I can, it's almost like you become this child, and it's almost like you lack any sort of responsibilities or accountability, that you're just like, well, fuck this, I'm being made to do all this during the week. Like, no one's making you do that. But this is where I try to bring clients into the understanding of, it's like, it's your day-to-day that matters the most. Not having this like such distant future, or like weekend versus weekday, or these extreme approaches or differentiations in how we approach life. Like, make your everyday enjoyable. Like, that, it's as simple as that, and it can be the simple things that makes it fucking enjoyable. Go watch the sunset after work instead of going home and binge watching some sort of Netflix series.
Yeah.
Connect with people that you really enjoy with. Maybe it is changing jobs. Maybe it's trying to look for a different project to do. Maybe it's trying to upskill instead of feeling like you're stuck in a rut. Like, maybe it's communicating with people in your life. Maybe it's just changing your walking route to work. Maybe it is actually working on some aspect of yourself that makes you feel a little bit more aligned. There's so many things that you can do on a daily basis that gives you that fulfillment and that enjoyment. And of course, we do need to look at the likes of gratitude. We do need to look at the likes of your daily conditioning, like what you're exposed to online, who you're listening to, if you're in an office space where all they do is fucking bitch and moan and that's dragging you down, or all they do is talk about dieting. You know, there's lots of different things that can influence you negatively in the external that you may need to look at changing. But sometimes it's like, okay, what am I doing that's setting myself up for such a miserable week? Instead of seeing what one small, like, again, coming back to simple changes, what's one small thing I can do this week? Maybe that's just meditating once on a Wednesday night and then going from there. You know, there's so many simple things you can do. And that's the thing with anxiety and Sunday scaries, I think, is like the fear, everything's overwhelming, it's too much to cope with. Don't focus on how much you need to change or how much that scares you. Focus on one small step that you can do, again, that doesn't trigger your nervous system too much, that helps you feel like you're moving forward, that helps you see a little bit of hope, a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Obviously it doesn't have to be that deep, but we can feel a little bit better in ourselves, especially that gives you more confidence that you're actually saying, oh, I actually did change something this week. Maybe I can change something again next week and go from there.
That's it. And like, as even like with confidence there, like if you're constantly putting yourself down, or if you're constantly saying like, oh my god, I hate my job so much, you're going to be left with no purpose there, because like, you know, your job isn't serving you, you're not getting fulfilled from it, and then every day then is going to feel like a slog, because you're not working towards anything at all. And I see it so much with clients. They're kind of like, oh, you know, life is grand, you know, like it's like I should be grateful for what I have, but like I'm not, because I'm just, you know, I'm not fulfilled, and etc. And the second we start thinking about, okay, you know, let's work on, you know, gaining more fulfillment in work. You know, are you applying yourself? Are you adding your own little personal touch on things? You know, there's various different things that you can do to get more fulfillment. It's not always leave the job. But the second we start working on those type of things, the second we say, okay, let's work towards this. Like, what do you enjoy? What would you always like to do? If I have a magic wand, 3 months time, what happened in those 3 months if it was a great 3 months? People get excited, and just because, literally, if you think I could possibly be somewhere that I like in a couple of months' time, the amount of value that can add to your day is insane. And I can see it even with clients when we start talking about their goals. They're like nearly giddy children in a way, because they're like, they get like, you know, like they nearly get excited about, and like I love that, because I'm like, that's that small little difference, like that small little tweak makes such a difference. And it's something that I'm always saying, the smallest change will make the biggest difference to your life. So like on your Sunday night, if you're every single week you have the Sunday scaries, you're like, oh my god, like I can't go to work tomorrow, like I can't, which is something we've all felt. Change just something, like go down to the beach or something like that, and just watch the water for a smile. Go, and instead of watching Netflix until 11 o'clock at night and, you know, then just rolling over and going to sleep, instead of doing that, why don't you get your few bits ready for the next day and have a FaceTime with a friend, or, you know,
do a face mask.
Yeah, do something like a little Sunday reset or something like that, you know. Like I only put on my story last night, like, this is your Sunday night reminder to do something that your future self will thank you for. So like this could be now getting up and taking your car to the petrol station, filling up the car, so that in the morning you're not like booting down the road, going to the petrol station trying to fill up your car, and you're already late. You know, it could be getting your food ready for the next day. Like, is there any greater joy in work than when you're in a job that you're not really fulfilled from, but you know you've an unreal lunch? Do you know? And you're like, yes, think of that future self who's like, yes, I have this for my lunch.
Yeah,
like, yes,
yeah.
there's nothing quite like that.
Food is the way to my heart.
Yeah, you know, but it's like that small little difference. So like do that, and then even think about like how much your future self there will be like, oh, thank you.
Love that. You talk quite a lot about your future self, but what advice would you give to your younger self?
Okay, my past self, I definitely would say.
Past selves.
I was like, was I thinking about grammar or something there? Past self. Okay, I would say stop relying on like friends for like validation and to like rely, like I suppose relying on them for like answers and support and to do things. Like just fucking do it yourself. Yeah, and stop like seeking validation from others. Because I think when you start to seek validation from others, it means like you decide what my worth is. And the more that you can say, no, I decide who I'm worthy of. I decide what I'm worthy of, and I decide what I'm capable of. And instead of saying, okay, well, does this person like me or not? Am I cool enough to be around these people and all this? You basically are kind of saying like, you decide what way my life goes, and you decide if I'm worthy or not, and you decide where my confidence levels are at. But if you can take back your power there and say, no, I actually fucking decide that, like, you know, I'm the person who decides that puts you in so much more of a powerful position. So yeah, I think a lot of it really would come back to like society and friends and all of these things, not being afraid to go against the grain as well. You know, I suppose growing up I was kind of different in the sense of like I was a pure boy. Like I was a complete and utter tomboy. I remember crying because I had to wear a communion dress.
Aww.
I was shook because I had to wear a communion dress. Like I had to wear a communion dress. Like I was like, I want to wear communion pants. Like why can't I wear pants? You know, or trousers, sorry, as he called them.
Trousers. Yeah.
And yeah, so like, but then being a little bit embarrassed then as it, when you kind of get to an older age. But like now I'm very much like, yeah, I like my girly stuff, but like anyone who knows me, like I am quite masculine and like, you know, I am who I am and stuff like, and I'm like if somebody doesn't like me because I'm into more football instead of like makeup, that's a them problem, you know.
Exactly, yes.
And that's me deciding like what am I worthy enough there, you know.
I think that all that kind of is about what you're saying about making your own decisions, living your life by you as well. A lot of people have to learn to trust themselves again. So in your decision making and stuff like that, like a lot of my clients will come to me and they'll literally be living like the basic things, like even an exercise I would give to clients is to look at the menu the next time you're deciding what food you're going to have, and don't consult anyone else. Or even when you're going on a night out with the girls and you're like picking jeans and a top, don't ask the girls what top you're going to wear. Or if you want to wear a fucking dress but they're wearing jeans and top, you wear your dress. Live your life by you, but learn to trust that, and that helps you connect more with your intuition as well.
Yes.
What feels good for you.
100%.
So what do you feel that you want to do for you? End of, that's your decision. But what we do is, if we're seeking the approval or the worth or everything that like you just mentioned, we will look externally and we won't trust ourselves because we'll fear of what could go wrong or what people will think, and it shouldn't matter at the end of the day. You should care more about being happy and living your life in alignment with yourself than what other people think of you. Like
100%. It's, I suppose it's about the peace of it all, because like you're going to have more peace if you're not relying on other people's answers and stuff. And I think like you mentioned there, like happiness, like in my opinion, like long-term happiness is a myth. Like it is impossible to be happy like what is happiness? Like you could go on holidays to an all-inclusive resort in the Maldives. You get there, like, oh my god, I could stay here for life. No, you couldn't. You'd go mad after 3 weeks there. So it's like, you know, like happiness is so fleeting, you know, like even like when you do go on holidays and you're like eating like a bag of Lay's at the pool, you know, and then you're having your big dinners and you're drinking all the time and stuff, and you're like, yeah, but then like come to the end of the holiday, you're like, can't wait for my routine, can't wait for good healthy food, you know, like cooking my bits and all that, you know, like it's like, so it's kind of like, what is happiness? Like happiness is so fleeting, happiness doesn't exist, but people are obsessed with being happy all the time. When again, as I said, it's a myth. So what I would say is like, take your focus off being happy, because your happiness is always going to change, and it's like you're chasing something forever, and move it to, does this give me peace? And like, you could be going into work on a Monday morning, you might not be happy to do that, but you're at peace with it because of everything that you get from it. You get obviously your money to, you know, pay your rent or pay your mortgage, feed yourself, all of these things, you know. So you might not be happy about something, but you're at peace with it. And I think that's a great goal to have, like peace, like inner peace, because happiness, like you can't be happy all the time. Happiness is so fleeting. So change your goal from being happy to bringing me peace, because life can be tough, you know, like life can be really challenging. And if you think that you should wake up every morning, no matter where you are, like it's impossible to be happy all of the time. Like if it was possible to be happy all the time, like people who were millionaires, there would be no depression with any millionaires or suicides or any of this, you know. But there is, unfortunately, and that just shows happiness is a myth. Peace is where it really lies.
The limit does not exist. No, I think that's really important as well. I spent a good few years really trying to strive for happiness. So
it's like toxic positivity thing as well, you see, like,
you're not honouring your actual emotions, you're suppressing. And as well, some people try to pretend they're happy, to people please, or to be fitting in their environment, or to be the person that's liked or whatever. But you're just dishonouring yourself time and time again. You're abandoning yourself time and time again. And this is the important thing of coming back to the truest version of yourself and always supporting you. If people abandon you, if people leave you, if people don't approve of you, it shouldn't matter, because at the end of the day, you always have you. You can always come back to making decisions that bring you peace, that make you feel aligned, that make you feel gratitude, that whatever, that lights you up. But if you continue to chase that happiness, it can evolve, like you said. But you are also going to be just dishonouring yourself, and you're going to feel worse in the process. You're not actually going to feel better by pretending you're happy. You're going to feel 10 times worse, like you mentioned about the emotions, that they are going to come to the fucking surface eventually, and they're going to erupt and they're going to bubble up. And instead of making it escalate to like a mental breakdown, or like I like to call a mental breakthrough sometimes, you're actually going to be able to manage the day by day. It's not going to become this thing that you're like happy for a while. And I remember I used to have a belief that like happiness, once you're happy, the universe is gonna like take it off you, or like, well, I didn't believe in the universe then, but it's like, don't be happy, don't let anyone know you're happy, don't say you're happy, because then things will go wrong. Like, how fucked up was that?
Okay, well,
yeah, I know issues.
I nearly would have thought it would have been like the other way around, because, you know, obviously like toxic positivity thing, be happy and everything will be perfect, you know, like be positive, and I thought that's what you were going to go, but I've never really heard of it on like the flip.
There was obviously that, and I didn't know about toxic positivity then. So unbeknownst to myself, I was being positively toxic. I don't know. Yeah, I had toxic positivity affect me basically, but because then if I would eventually get to that place of actual true happiness, so like not pretending to be happy, like actual true happiness, it's like I was waiting for the penny to drop, because I was always feeling that underlying emotion that I wasn't actually processing. And
that's the thing, and that's it. Like people, even like clients on calls, they'd say, "I'm really sorry now for being negative, you know, but this is how I'm feeling."
Like, no.
And I'm like, that's not being negative. Like, what's being negative is like suppressing your emotions. You know, like if you're feeling sad and you're going, "Oh, I feel happy, la la la," like that's negative. Like that's going to negatively impact you. Whereas if you say, "I'm sad," that's not being negative. That's just being honest. That's been real. Yeah, and then you're going to get to deal with it. So you're going to deal with that so much better. You're going to be able to handle that so much better. You know. And the thing about the positive, like toxic positivity and positive thinking and stuff like that, as I always say to people, like if your car broke down in the morning, are you going to sit in it and go, think positive thoughts, think positive thoughts, think positive thoughts? No, you're going to be like, I need to take this to the garage, I need to see what's going on, and I need to get it sorted. Like if you sit there and you try to think positive, how is that actually going to help you? A positive outlook, yes. Positive thinking as a coping mechanism, no, because there are times in life when you can't be positive. You get some bad news, something happens to a relative, etc. You can't be positive about that. There's nothing to be positive about. And if positive thinking is your only coping skill, if it's the only tool in your toolbox, you're going to fall at the first hurdle. So you know.
Amen to that. But anyways, thank you so much for coming. We had such an amazing conversation.
Time flew.
Like, oh my god, the time did fly. We touched on so many different things there. People are going to get so much value from this, so thank you. Where can people find you?
So I am on Instagram at Zoë Dunlea Mindset Coach. That is where I will put most of my content. I'm also zoedunleacoaching.com. I have something coming in the next couple of weeks, which is very exciting. If there were some aspects of this podcast that spoke to you, whether it be toxic positivity, trying to manage your negative thoughts and emotions better, routine, structure, spirituality, any of those things, this will serve you. So keep your eye out for that. And don't be afraid to send me a message if any questions or anything like that. I'm more than happy to help, because as I said, I want to help people like I wish I was helped when I needed it the most. So don't ever be afraid to ask me a question. I'm more than happy to help.
Thank you. One thing that we agreed on last week, we had a lovely breakthrough. It was like, be the girl that you needed when you were younger. That was something that I was like, oh my god, I thought that as well. That was something that I wanted to do too. So yeah, it definitely is important. Like, the overall message of this is, if you are feeling stuck, if you're feeling like there's more for you, if you're feeling that you're unhappy in your relationships or unfulfilled, change. Just fucking change. And if you don't see how you can do that yourself, seek support. Like you said, there's nothing serious about it. You don't need to be at a point where things are really bad. It's like people wait until a point with their health to go to the doctor, but like, why not get someone who can bring you from a place of just surviving? So you go to the doctor or seek professional support, when I suppose majority of people have that belief that you do it when you're not surviving. And then when you're surviving, you're okay, you're taking over, you're holding down the fort. But why not feel like you can thrive? Why not feel like you can actually enhance your life and feel like a fucking amazing badass bitch? Like, there is that possibility as well. So yeah, thank you so much for coming. Give Zoe some love, give her a follow on Instagram, and make sure to share this episode with anyone that you think will gain value from it. Give me a subscribe, a like, a review. Anything is very much appreciated, and so grateful for you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.